What's up, everyone? Good to see you again. Welcome back to another episode of Ask E Everything. I hope everyone is well, and as always, I hope everyone is surviving or thriving if you can out there during these crazy times. The question today is, am I or are you blank enough? Am I blank enough? Or another way of thinking about it is to remove that blank and just ask yourself, am I enough? I don't know if this is a question you've ever thought about. I'm guessing you probably have. I know I certainly have. This one got kind of brought on in the past day or two as I've just been hearing several folks kind of ask this out loud on TV shows or in the news. Or mostly folks just saying, I wish I could do more. I just wish I could be more of this. I wish I could give more. I'm just not sure if I'm doing enough. Are we doing enough? Are we enough? And so it got me thinking about kind of the answer to this question, the importance of asking ourselves this question and coming to an answer. So a couple different ways to look at it. We can either, have that blank there and you can fill in any word you can imagine in that blank. It could be an adjective or really a verb of your choice. Some of the common ones will be, am I good enough? Am I successful enough? Am I wealthy enough? Attractive enough? Am I strong enough? Am I happy enough? Am I doing enough? Or just am I generally being enough? Am I providing? Any word you want. The challenge of this video is going to be to provide you with an acceptable answer for any word that you put into that blank space, or to the answer to the question in and of itself without that blank space even being there. At a glance, this seemed kind of like a tall order, but after a little bit of thought, I've arrived at a place where I'm, really content with the answer, and I think it actually has some great implications for, as always, what we can do with it. Again, it's not about just answering the question, it's about taking it one step further and saying, okay, now I understand it, what's next? So when I was thinking about this as an entirety, I was realizing that oftentimes when we get to a point where we're asking that question, there's a fair chance that we feel like in that moment that the answer is no to this question. And the reason I say that is because it wouldn't necessarily come about unless there was some sort of self-doubt regarding being enough. And so when we break down that simple word, enough, if you look up the definition, regardless of which one you read, there will be, some term that has something to do with being adequate or being, kind of at an acceptable level. And as I started to think about this, the adequacy was the word that really came out to me, because I think when we ask ourselves that question, we're really asking, am I adequate? Am I, on enough of am I feeling, enough of an acceptance on this level to be, considered par or enough? And it got me really, I guess, kind of inspired to think about it with regard to myself, and thinking about in the times of my life where I have asked myself this, where was it coming from? I quickly realized that it usually was coming, out of this point of kind of, either just sadness or kind of a dark place, or just a lack of confidence, or a desperate time in life with regard to, either emotions or finances or what have you. And I tried to think of a time in my life when, things were going great and I was already, at a good par, if I've ever asked myself that question when I was just kind of rolling well in a certain category of life. And quickly I was able to answer that by realizing I had not. So the issue becomes, if we're in a place of kind of, self-doubt when we're asking this question, that means that we're not really in a great place when we're asking this question. And so we're seeking for, this answer to it, something to, make us feel okay about asking this question. And so the problem with that is you would think the jump answer would be yes to that question when we're asking it. That we might say, well, am I blank enough? Okay, well, yeah, I am. And then to move on. But what I feel like happens, because it's coming from a negative place, oftentimes when we're asking the question, we're answering it with the negative answer. And that's kind of a natural progression, right? Because you're already in a spot where you're doubting yourself. And so the answer to a question of doubt would be probably the negative answer. Am I strong enough? Am I, giving enough? Well, no, I'm probably not. And the reason you're answering it that way is because you're already there. You're already in that space. It's almost like a rhetorical question to yourself, in a sense. Because you already know the answer if you're asking that. It'd be very rare to say, well, am I, blank enough, and just say, well, yeah, sure, I am. I think the problem with that is that it's going to then lead to a pursuit to be, more of whatever your blank is, or to be better at whatever that area is. The only problem being there is that it's going to be coming from a negative spot. So this now is going to be a pursuit to be more of something, but it's going to be, instead of coming out of positivity and strength, you're going to be pursuing to fill that void, or to get to that next level of whatever category you're talking about, with stress and with, a sense of desperation and with a sense of need. And when we go at things with that kind of approach, while we may get some success because we could be in a position where we kind of have to get something done, or in this case we have to become more of something, or we have to become more adequate, while you could argue that is going to be some level of success that comes from that place, I would argue that there's no way that it's ever going to be the same level that we could achieve if we're coming out of a place of positivity. Well, so what is the answer to the question then? Are we enough? Am I enough? Are you enough? Ask it any way you want. The answer is yes. The answer to the question is yes. You are enough, and you always will be enough. More importantly, you always have been enough. And this is an important realization to come to. As I came to it on my own, I was quickly filled with a lot of kind of, great energy as far as just that level of acceptance, because I started to realize that if I can accept that as the truth, that regardless of what I put in that blank, or if I'm just asking myself, generally speaking, am I enough? And I can agree with myself that I am, and that I always have been, and that I always will be. I can then now take all of the stress and the desperation and the, kind of forced nature of pursuing being anything more, and I can come at it from an entirely different perspective if I do in fact want to be more of something, or if I want to pursue another, quote, level in any of these categories. I can do it willingly, and I can do it from a point of already being self-accepted. What that will do is not only allow me to enjoy the pursuit more, I believe that it will lead to a more positive outcome. Even if you could argue that when you're in a desperate time and you think that you have to be better or be more of something or be more adequate, that you may get quicker results, or that you may get a quicker, reaction or an outcome in a quicker way, I still would argue that even if it does come sooner because you had to, or you thought you had to, or someone made you believe that you had to be better, I would still argue that that's coming from a negative spot, because it will be produced from stress and anxiety and a sense of need that someone has imposed on you, or that you've imposed on yourself, versus being able to sit here and say, I am enough, I always have been, I always will be, and so therefore, if I'm in a good place and I want to achieve a little more in any one of these categories, whether it's an emotional one, or a sense of wealth, or a health goal, or a sense, or from a place of giving or some kind of charitable act or something like that, you will do better in that scenario if you accept that you are already enough as is. And so the caveat of that would be, or another way of looking at it would be, that you're fine just the way you are. Not only that, you're amazing just the way you are. It's not about just being adequate. When we are talking about enough in this sense, or at least when I am, I'm talking about a level of fulfillment, whereby I mean if you cannot do anything more, or if you cannot or do not want to or don't feel that you're capable of doing anything more, that will be just fine. You are fine the way you are. You're perfectly fine the way that you are. However, if you are able to be in a good space and sit here and say, you know what, this is right, this is true, I accept that I am enough, but as I look around at little aspects of my life that I may want to achieve a greater sense of fulfillment, or to a higher level of adequacy, if you will, if you have that wish, you are able to healthfully go ahead and pursue that. So if you'd like to be a little stronger or faster, you're more than welcome, obviously, to pursue some level of fitness training. If you would like to, be more healthy in some sense from a food or dietary perspective, then you certainly are free to pursue that. If you'd like to be able to give a little more to a charity, then you will start to find a responsible way to be able to achieve that goal. All the while realizing that these are not level up situations where once you get to a certain part or a certain level or a certain space, you have to go ahead and maintain that, and you have a new floor or a new bottom. In ways where you can do that, then great. You can be more of something, and then you can maintain that level going forward. But if you just get it together where you're saying, I'm in a great space right now, I'm feeling great, I'm going to pursue a goal, I'm going to be more of blank, you go ahead and do it. And if in the next day or the next minute, hour, or the next month or year goes by, and for some reason you find yourself, back, to where you came from, this could very easily happen, specifically in the level of of finances. You have to say, okay, no matter where I am, I'm always enough. So even though you feel like you may have had some greater success in one category, but then you've come back down, and you may translate this as being lesser, or back to another place of where you're no longer as good or as adequate, or that you're no longer feeling like you're enough. The reality is you need to remember that there are really no such thing as levels. We're only speaking about them as to as they apply to your goals and your things that you want to achieve. But the reality is, no matter where you are, who you are, or what you are enough. And once you understand that, it will allow not only for any real pursuits that you want to pursue, and for trying to attain kind of a little bit more in any of these categories, it will also be peace of mind for any time you're sitting there and feeling like you've fallen back down a couple rungs on the ladder, or you're just in kind of a little bit of a tough space. You can remind yourself that there's no such thing as not being enough. And no one in the universe should or can actually make you feel that way. And if they are, or you feel like someone has been making you feel that way, you need to remind yourself that it's ultimately up to you to allow that or not. And while this is easier said than done, it is the truth. No one can make you feel that you are inadequate. They can only put that out there, and you can then receive it. And you either are going to believe that or not. But you need to constantly be reminding yourself that no matter what other people say or do to you, the truth is, the answer to the question always and forever will be that you are indeed enough. There's this famous quote that kind of rolls around in a bunch of different iterations that goes something to the effect of being good enough never is. And I like the quote. At first glance, I thought it might have a little bit of a negative connotation, as if to suggest that you will never actually be able to achieve that feeling of being good enough. But what I really believe that it is an inspirational quote in a way, in as so much as we ought maybe never to stop pursuing being a little bit more of the things that we want to be more of. But I do believe that you need to always remember that the kind of the untruth of the quote, if you read it the wrong way, would be that you are not already enough. You are enough. I don't believe that that means, though, that you cannot pursue more greatness or more positivity. So I think that the goal for today, there's not really going to be a flip the script for today. The question of the day, or the goal for today, is going to be to ask yourself, am I enough? And to provide yourself with the easy answer, which I'm not the first to say this, so it's not a completely original idea, but it is one that I do believe is the correct answer. I am enough. I always have been enough, and I always will be enough. So ask the question, answer it that way, remind yourself of that. Anytime you're starting to feel like you're inadequate in any way, remind yourself that not only are you already enough, but there is an incredible amount of upside on the other side of that question. The answer, though, is to be able to pursue it in a way where you've already accepted that you're already at an amazing place. And so there's only going up from that spot. I hope that makes sense and helps you out, guys, today. If you enjoyed it, definitely leave me some comments, some likes. Of course, if you'd like to be my second subscriber ever, I would really appreciate it. So someone go for it. Let's do it. And otherwise, have a great day. Remember, the only dumb question is the one that goes unanswered. That's what we're trying to do here. Ask the big ones, answer them, and